All right. Good evening, Bishop Joshua Maponga. Good evening and welcome to Live Chat with Josie.
Nice talking to you. Good evening to you and good evening to your viewers.
Thank you. How is it there in South Africa, right?
Johannesburg is just fine. We're doing well here, rattling with Corona.
Okay. And the weather?
It's chilly. The devil has opened the doors here. It's chilly, very chilly.
Thank you so much. So it's a culture here on Live Chat with Josie that I'll ask you to introduce yourself. I know who you are, but many people that are watching us today might not know exactly who is Bishop Joshua Maponga III.
Okay. Ndiziranga ndinonzi Jeshu, mwana warazaro, mwana wamnyuki marara, maponga, vana nduma, vana chapinduka, tisu vana diriri, vana pfumo jena, vanobva guruswa, mukanya, chigara mboko, kugara mashamba huda, chirira navana vevanji, makumbe mwana, musende weshanu, vana magara mauhe, matanda anora, zvigwe zvitedza zvinobigwa navana manga, vari pedu vanotamba nazvo, vano mutambo uri paruware, zvona zvapfumo jena.
Aiwa, makadiko jena.
Takasunura makadiniwo.
Okay, Bishop, so which part of Zimbabwe are you from? How was it growing up back then?
I was born in Bikita, in Masvingo, in the farms there of Bikita. Did some primary school in Triangle and Chimanimani, and back to Tugwi, then Bulawayo, then university, part of Zimbabwe, bit of America, work, Swaziland, South Africa, UK, and the United Kingdom, and I came back to South Africa, and yeah, in a nutshell, that's where I've been, that's where I've traveled, and I am just.
So you were born and bred in Zimbabwe. You're a full Zimbabwean.
My ID is 64 what B04.
What you've forgotten your ID number.
740394 B04, something like that.
Okay, why I ask is a lot of people on Twitter ask me to ask you why you are not a proud Zimbabwean, that out there you don't even talk about Zimbabwe. It's like you're trying to run away from your roots. Is that true?
I'm not running away from my roots. And if people have been watching me and following me, apart if they are new people, but if they have been following me for the longest part of my 10 years, there's actually lots of content I've put out there focusing at the Zimbabwean political and economic space. But the calling has extended me to the greater African emancipation for a simple reason that the problems of Zimbabwe are actually the problems of Africa. And while I'm talking about Africa, by solving a local problem, we will not be able to have attended to the bigger space. So I'm working from outside back to the inside, but I am surely involved in the conversations. But we're still also, it must be mentioned on record that the Zimbabwean political terrain is not an environment which you temper into if you are not sure of exactly of what you want to do. You might end up attracting unnecessary problems and misunderstandings, which right now are not my priority in terms of starting to extinguish fires of media, nyaya dzemasite namasiyayo uchingodzingirigwa wazodini wataura nani zvafamba sei unokaurwa munhu angogera bhibho mubhucha, so uchati zvinofamba sei zvinhu zvacho. So yes, I do some work, but I don't want to put my hands too much into the Zimbabwean political pot for a very strategic reason here.
For security reasons. Okay. So many asked also why exactly you left the Seventh-day Adventist.
If a child goes to the shop with the mother and the child is 3 years old and the mother comes back home alone, who left the other one?
And the child comes back home alone?
The mother comes back home alone.
Mm.
Who left the other one in the streets?
left the child on the streets?
Who left the child on the street? Is it the child
The
who left
mother.
the mother, or the mother left the child?
The mother left the child on the streets.
So I never left the church. The church left me, in the sense that my concerns over social impact programs, my concerns over judicial issues, health issues, my concerns over social reform, and the activity of the church in terms of dealing with those issues. Jesus cannot be the answer if he cannot answer the African problem. So I did not want to drag the church and force them to do what they were not prepared to do. Would rather have us quiet and silent and pass no comment on nothing that is happening, because we may compromise their relationship with the government. So I felt it was maybe proper that I work from outside of the system without bringing the church into disrepute.
Okay, so but are there some things about the Seventh-day Adventists that you didn't believe in?
Believing is worth nothing. Believing is just a bucket of dogma. It does not change the price of bread. Show me what you do with your beliefs, then I'll tell you if it is practical or not. Believing in the Trinity, does that add to your days? Does that put bread on your neighbor's table? Does that stop the violence against women? So faith and dogma, I can write my own doctrines and dogma. I'm qualified enough as a theologian to do that. So the issue is not people running around, which church do you go to? What do you believe in? What do you believe in? That's a very peripheral conversation. It does not have the impact in terms of transforming the society and changing the DNA of our corrupt and degenerating community. So show me a Christian and I'll become one.
So you don't go to church anymore, Bishop?
I visit church, but the best church I have is with myself and family in my own private space. But once in a while, I visit Kelvin SDA Church in Senton here. So because family and children are still going there. But for what it is worth, the credit or discredit must not be on the Seventh Adventist Church. My guns are actually pointed at the entire Christian community. We cannot be walking around the churches demonstrating the power of God over drinking petrol and people eating grass, and yet real problems are happening. To such an extent now we have Corona, and there are pastors right now who are planning a revival and a healing night, and when real problems are looking us in the eye. So if there is any pastor out there who has a gift of healing, please stand out and bring solutions. Stop wasting our time telling us Jesus heals. Bring him and let him solve the problems.
Oh, Bishop, that is deep. Anyway, we are going to touch more about this Christianity and decolonization of Christianity as the discussion goes on. But you're also a person who's wearing many caps: an author, a musician, a poet, a businessman, and I can go on and on. Tell me, how do you manage to juggle around and keep fit, still keep your calm, and make it all work?
Much of the work that I do will make you mad, in terms of you can lose your mind. So I had to come up with a strategy where I spread my energy over multiple spaces of activities, which are all equally taxing and mentally involving. So from my fine art, from my painting to my crafts, to my writing, to my biking, to my, so that at least you are able to move your energies across a wider spectrum. Because if you focus at one thing only, you may end up sometimes making some unnecessary mistakes. So I've opted to have a much more lateral, plural, diverse way of penning out my day and penning out my life, just to maintain the balance that I need.
Interesting. So there is a topic that is very important in our daily life, that is religious. And I want you to tell me about the gospel according to Maponga J.
So you are following, yeah.
Of course, for me to interview you, then I have to follow you before, so I know. Tell me about gospel according to Maponga J.
Firstly, that gospel is, you are supposed to take that gospel and read it yourself. and apply those principles, and then tell me if your life will change for better. I want the gospel, this gospel, to become a blueprint for the African child. Right? Firstly, the Christian community feels it's a profanity because you cannot be writing your own gospel because the Bible is already written. You have 12 apostles in the Bible, and yet you only have passages written by 3 of them. That is Paul, Peter, and John, and a little bit of James here and there. And the other 8, 9 disciples are not accounted for. On the same wavelength, the gospel according to Matthew, the gospel according to Luke, the gospel according to John, the gospel according to Matthew, that whole concept of the gospel according to, in the Greek it appears as kata marikon, kata lukon, kata ioanno, which means as Matthew looked at it, as Mark looked at it, as John looked at it. So it's an internalization of an experience. Then when you write and you reflect on that experience, it is actually the way you are looking at it. So after I'm done with you, you are also going to write the gospel according to Mahachi.
I wish I can do that. You help me, right?
You have said it, I'll assist you.
Okay. And then one thing that I also find hard to deal with, Bishop, personally as Josie, is forgiveness. I know many can agree with me. These issues are so much in families, marriages, etc. How can one deal with that?
Forgiveness is not for the one who has made a mistake. Forgiveness is the one who is forgiving. Because forgiveness, the problem is when someone hurts you, you lock them in your prison, but the prison has no door. You are the door. And you sit there and make sure that they don't escape. You can't sleep because they may escape. And therefore, forgiveness looks at the one who has wronged you and say, I have a life to run. I cannot babysit you over my misery. So I'll let you go for free so that I can also be free to do my things. So forgiveness works more for the one who forgives rather than the one who is being forgiven. Blessed is the hand that gives than the hand that forgives. And to forgive, to forgive is an offering. It's a gift that you give someone. You give someone that gift, which frees both of you from the hurt. And until you know that with anger and non-forgiveness, you have a sharp knife in your hand and you are poking yourself. You are destroying yourself. But when you forgive, you allow the other person to have a life and loosen them in your spiritual space so as to allow you to live the life that you must live. So forgiveness is personal. First, before you can give it and forgive it, you must be prepared to experience it yourself and give it to the other person.
That is deep. So, and what does decolonizing Christianity mean to you? I have heard you on many platforms saying that Christianity we have is colonized, but should that be an issue since God is one?
It's nice to say God is one, but we know Christianity as the Europeans brought it. There is Christianity that was brought in by the Ethiopian eunuch. When you read the book of Acts, you already find the Ethiopian eunuch was reading the Bible, reading the book of Isaiah. And then a prophet was sent quickly next to him. Philip, do you understand what you are reading, sir? So he already read the Bible. And this was an Ethiopian. This is AD 31. Are you with me? Then the Bible was already in Africa. So we cannot begin to think of Christianity in the context of the Europeans coming in the 16s and the 1800s. And the question you need to ask yourself is, how did Christianity leave Africa black and then come back from Europe white? How does a Hebrew Messiah come back as a blue-eyed Jesus? Decolonization.
So So in other words, you're saying that colonizers customized religion before they came to Africa, or before they brought it back to Africa.
The branding of a white Jesus was convenient for colonialism, because by accepting a white Jesus, you were accepting the whites, and you cannot kill a white man because he looks like your savior. Psychologically, the African's spirituality is captured to think that actually whites are superior to themselves, and hence with them comes in a white messiah, which is actually a geographical lie. It is a historical lie. It is a theological lie, and it is a doctrinal abomination, because the Bible says, don't make yourself any graven image of anything in the heavens, on earth, or underneath the ground. How come Christianity believes in the Bible, yet they accept an image and an idol without challenging them on the basis of the book of Exodus, that no one must make a graven image of anything? By allowing the Europeans to craft Christ like themselves, they have made an abomination, and they've done heresy of the highest order. And for Christianity to package its books and literature with paintings and pictures of a white Jesus, we've made Jesus into an idol. So I don't believe in that idol totally.
And what you're saying is very deep, because as you're talking, I'm just thinking, because I grew up thinking that, okay, Jesus is white. And the picture I also have of God, whenever I think of God, to me, it's like God is white, but many people, I'm sure many people actually agree with me. Psychologically, that's what our brains were tend to believe. And so, like you're saying, that it was customized before it was brought to Africa. That is very deep, Bishop. So how can people now start removing that mentality?
When you finally understand the colonial project, then you feel ashamed that you have been lied to for the longest of time. And in 2020, to have ministers who are still promoting the white Jesus, it's a shame. In the 20th century, to have black pastors who are forcing Africans to be Europeans is a shame. In our fashion, it's a shame. In our music, it's a shame. In our indigenous medicines, it's a shame. To actually think that you are a Christian when in fact you are in European culture. To think that you cannot be accepted in a church without a white wedding, it's a shame, because a white wedding is a white culture. Why not getting married as Africans? Who says the white culture is better than? People don't want to admit it, but there's a principle called the principle of the dominant culture. When religion comes with a dominant culture, that culture bullies, undermines. It also degrades, dehumanizes another community to look like itself, so that at the end of the day, you become like your colonial master. You cannot stand up on the pulpit without a jacket and a tie. You cannot come to a church looking like that. Jesus will not accept you looking like that. All these stereotypes that we begin, please switch off the traditional drums there. Let's play some hymns and a nice organ, because it's time for worship now. So you can almost tell that psychologically, even the God that we are worshiping can only be accessed through the European expression, which is the solemn, sober hymns, holy, holy, holy. Then the church was very beautiful. And so even our worship services is colonized. The question is, when you close your eyes and you see a white Jesus in your mind while you're praying, you're actually praying to a demon.
Bishop, I grew up in Catholic, and I think until I moved, or I stopped going to Catholic churches, it always used to have white priests. It's only now, I think, that we are now getting also like black priests. So is it also part of the colonization that they would bring priests from Italy and all to be the priests in African Roman Catholic churches?
There are two groups of people you must study carefully. One is a missionary, the other one is a mercenary. The mercenary is carrying a gun, the missionary is carrying a Bible. And in the evening, they are having coffee together, discussing how is the colonial project happening. So you can never be blindfolded to think that the church did not have its hand in the politics. That's why in every city you find there's a cathedral. And in every city, there is a church. And you wonder, where were these churches during times of oppression? Those churches never said nothing about the liberation of the African people. Totally nothing. Instead, those churches were the ones that were marrying the colonizers. Those churches are the ones who were praying. Some of the ministers were actually cadres and generals and colonels in the army, praying for the weapons, for the soldiers, as they went to war to fight the savages. Do you tell me that is a minister who is praying for a bunch of people who are going to be killing another group of people? So let's stop playing the whole God business and actually begin to admit that religion in the hands of mercenaries became a tool of managing the African conscience, so that they will not be angry but learn to forgive, because God is love. And the only time those verses are preached is when the African must revenge. But when the European is abusing the black man, the verses of love your neighbor as you love yourself are never taught to the white community. So don't waste my time asking me a colonized system that actually oppressed and destroyed the African culture and its people in the name of Jesus. And Jesus was being mentioned throughout that whole conversation. And just when you thought you understood it well, the letter J only appeared on the alphabet 500 years ago. Question: so what was his name before the Catholics called him Jesus?
So someone here asks, and I want to actually ask you to answer that question for people to know. What was he called before 500 years ago, and now the letter J, which is my initial as well, became to be? What was he called before? And somebody here asks that, do you believe that Jesus died for us?
The day I'll see a white man dying for a black man, then I'll believe in the white Jesus dying for black people. As far as I'm concerned, the black man is still hanging on the cross, surrounded by the two thieves on the left and on the right. These are the Europeans and the Chinese who are busy crucifying Africa on the same cross. We cannot even talk about the death of Jesus. Let's talk about the dying of Africa constantly. Let's not create theology of poverty and misery and glorify the death of Jesus when our brothers and sisters are still dying. The death of Christ, therefore, is a symbolic death, the death of truth, the death of the poor, the death of the marginalized, the death of the children of the soil. And if religion is used to pacify that, then that is the doctrine of demons. For he came to set the captives free. And until Africa is free, there's no Jesus who has died on the cross. We are still dying to date. It cannot take one man to save the whole world. Yet we have 20 million Africans who drowned in the sea during slave trade. Is this God not tired of drinking blood? How much more blood does he need? Can you look at Congo? Give me the 15 million that died, plus the 25, 35 million. Calculate all the wars that have been fought in Africa. How many more millions? You tell me that all this blood that has been spilled is worth nothing, except the blood of one man who hung on a cross. So theology must not be used to create a sympathy for the white man. Theology must be used to evoke the African to start thinking, have we come down from the cross yet? Or the Romans, they have not changed. They're still Europeans. They are still nailing our hands, the style of our work, putting on crowns of thorns on our heads, managing our minds and what we think, piercing our sides, poking our reserves of food and etc., nailing our feet, passports. You cannot travel without this and that. Can you tell me that Jesus died on the cross? The day I see a black man free, I will start talking about Jesus who died for the sins of the world. He could not have died for the black man, and the white man who believes in him did the crimes that he did.
Oh, Bishop. So now, if this is what you're saying, that until you see a black man free, then you now believe that Jesus died for us. Then you still say that you still go to, sometimes you still go to SDA with your family. Then why are you going there?
I'm a third generation Adventist in my family. Jenny, I've been pursuing for the past 52 years. You grow. And the shoes I was putting on when I was in primary school, I can no longer put on the same shoes. Going to a church, unless it has become patriotism, that you go to a church so that you feel like you belong. And once you belong to a church, you are not allowed to think. Therefore, shut up because you go to church. Don't think. Because apparently when you enter a church, you must surrender your sanity, you must surrender your brains, you must surrender your critical mind. To become a member is actually selling your conscience.
Bishop, and many people also believe that Christianity is the way to make heaven. Does it mean that our forefathers who died before Christianity was brought to Africa didn't or won't make heaven?
The paganism of making an African wait for the heaven in the sky when the European is eating the heavens on earth is another doctrine of demons. Therefore, education and religion has become a passport of escaping from poverty. I don't want that religion at all. I cannot go to heaven to walk on the streets of gold when I have never touched the bar of gold on earth. I can't walk to heaven and own the estate of heaven when I fail to look after my own ground. Question: if God wanted us in heaven, why did he create us on earth? Now it's a big mission to kill all of us and resurrect us and move us to heaven for 1,000 years and bring us back here again. Why the bother? To kill people during the times of Noah and to preserve the devil. To kill your own son and you don't kill the devil. And apparently you must wait until the end of time to kill the devil. Why kill your son when you can kill the enemy yourself?
So is this the reason why a lot of prophets are now emerging in the world, but we want to focus on Africa today, and many are even tagged as fake prophets? How do we now identify the real prophets from the fake prophets? Or it's now just about these prophets realizing that there is nothing as Christianity and they're trying to take advantage of people?
Many of these prophets were having a bunch of liars and criminals and businessmen who are preying on gullible people. When I grew up, we used to have people who used to do masalamus. We used to call them Hadagabra, Bradagabra,
Magicians,
magicians. Then
magicians.
they would be taking eggs underneath your legs and making you.
Yes.
We no longer see those people today. Ask me where they are.
Oh, they're the ones now wearing the prophet's robes.
They are running the churches now. So I would not waste my time talking to prophets. Where were they when Corona came? Where were they when Idai came? Where were they when all these disasters are falling upon the earth? So don't monkey around and play with people's consciences because of some vague little words you can speak. I see 2020 will be a good year. I can see June, I can see December. I can see I've been there, it will be a good year. Where are we now? Where are we now? Are we not in quarantine? You tell me that all the prophets in the world,
They did not see it. They
no
didn't
one
see
could
it
tell us.
coming.
And yet the book of Joel says the Lord will not do anything unless he reveals it to his people through his prophets. So even now, we can forgive them on Corona. So give us a prophecy. How shall we come out of this? Give us some lies at least. Tell us, how long will this continue? And where is the solution coming from? Ask them to talk. Bring them forward to talk and tell us. All of them. In Zimbabwe, there you have quite a good number. We'll still
Yes,
have a
we
gift
do.
of prophecy. We cannot mention names. But I would want to interview one of them together with you and say, please, prophet, can you tell us what is happening to the world and what does the future look like?
It's actually amazing what you are saying, Bishop, because yesterday, was it the day before yesterday, there was a prayer and fasting in Zimbabwe that was imposed by the president, and I saw a whole lot of these pastors and prophets. They were all meeting at the State House saying they're praying for Zimbabwe. But look at Zimbabwe today. The situation in Zimbabwe, I mean, nobody even knows where we're heading to or what is going to happen.
Prayer must never be used. Prayer must never be used to replace labor and work. A prayer of laziness benumbs the brain. And don't pray for things that you are not willing to participate and make happen. Secondly, there's never been a time in Zimbabwe where the State House has become a house of prayer at a national level. If they were really serious about prayer, I would have wanted to see them conducting that prayer in Matopos, our ancient shrine, where Mwari himself is said to have been speaking in those rocks. Why is the African of today running away from the God whom even the white men did not find a better way to replace, but call him Mwari? So when you talk about Mwari, he's not found in the State House. There is a venue that you must go. This now talks to our sacred shrines that have been desecrated by Europeans. And to have governments in place that do not understand the nature of the Zimbabwean spirituality. It's just a cosmetics to be praying in our churches and doing ceremonies that mean nothing. If we wanted to have a change in the country, there's a spiritual ceremony that must be done. For number
But
one,
the funny thing is, Bishop, that they do these spiritual ceremonies secretly, privately. It's not like they're not doing it. They do those secretly, but when it comes to praying and fasting, that's when they do it in the open. Why?
they
I
do
mean,
them
are we not proud of our...
they do them secretly because they are using them for evil purposes. If they were really serious on the national agenda, it's the whole nation coming together for prayer at the correct place, with the correct priests, with the correct rituals being done. I'll give you one. As a Christian man, if in your family, no matter how much you believe in Jesus, if your brother or sister or someone kills another human being, akuiti ngozi kumushakwenyu.
I know about that, yes.
Munoidzinga nezita raJesu.
No, we
Until
have
what?
to brew some traditional beer and things. It's a process.
Clean up the spirit. Now, when you look at a country like Zimbabwe, how much blood was spilled during the struggle, how much blood was spilled after the struggle. And you read the book of Genesis when Cain killed his brother, and the Lord said, his blood has come to talk to me because you have killed your own brother. Is it not possible that when the land spills innocent blood, the land gets desecrated? Question: how then do we cleanse the land? How do we cleanse the leaders of the country whose hands are full of blood? We cannot account for the liberation struggle. Our heroes, some of them are still lying in Chimoyi and Nyazonya. Some are lying in Zambia. Lots of young men and boys are dumped in mine shafts during the colonial regime, plus during the independence regime. Gukura Hundi is in our hands. Crime is happening left, right, and center. There's rape, there is murder happening on every side. Do you think that the spiritual world would respect the independence of a country because you have a flag that you are running around, until a nation understands that the physical activities are influenced by the spiritual influences, and the contamination of the Zimbabwean airspace needs a spiritual solution? I would challenge all the ministers and traditional people to put their heads together. I have something to tell them.
So, Bishop, a lot of people knew that I was going to talk to you today from Zimbabwe, asked me to ask you, what do we do? Where do we go? What is your advice in terms of exactly what is going on in Zimbabwe? Of course, besides us looking for all these spiritual men to gather and talk to you, what can be done in Zimbabwe right now?
The first thing we need to do, we need to water our roots. Then we can begin to harvest the fruits. There is no way you can build a Zimbabwe without you building Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe speaks to the homes. Zimbabwe speaks to a country. If you want to build a country, firstly, you must build homes. The best thing we can do for ourselves first is to build solid homes. And from the solid homes that we have, then we need to start appreciating our indigenous knowledge. Back to back with that, I'm almost finished with the project where we are going to be instituting and sharing very soon, before the end of the year, the Zimbabwe national dress, after a great research for more than 5 years. And just get the Zimbabwean people proud.
That is good news. That is very good news. I mean, we've always wanted a Zimbabwe national dress. That is very good news, Bishop.
Yes, I know that piece of cloth they've come up with, it's good for other uses. But when you look at the pictures of Nehanda, the Kaguvi, Look at our language, Shashiko, Mapa, and all those things. We have words. I've put together beautiful research together with Nduriye Nyika, another guy who has actually done some beautiful artwork already. And we've just started production as of last week. You will see me very soon putting on one of the ancient Mwenemtapa, royal clothes. But maybe Zimbabweans were the most disadvantaged, because in the midst of us being one of the most educated countries in the world, yet we are one of the most cultureless societies in the world. It's a pity. It's a shame.
We are not proud of our culture. Yeah, I think
we even have a history more glorious than Great Britain. We are great Zimbabwe. We have a rich history, and in the midst of that rich history, we have not taken one cultural practice from that which is embedded in our nationhood. So we have nothing that unites us as a nation. Instead, tribalism, amongst tribalism, regionalism, mashona oku makaranga akasangana kumazezuru ndivanani, makorekore ndivanani, makorekore akasangana, we further divide each other, mazezuru akasangana, we further divide each other, makaranga akasangana, iworo kwa gutu, indiro kwani. We have just allowed a precipitation of constant hemorrhage of unity, to such an extent that even now, when you're supposed to tell the people, let's build the country together, a whole nation like Zimbabwe does not know what to do. Here's a simple solution: start building Zimba, then you can build Zimba.
But Bishop, is it really about Ndrimu Zezuru, Ndrimu Karanga, Ndrimu Vitori? Is it not the political leaders dividing people of Zimbabwe?
And you are cooperating.
Well, they are cooperating, yes, because I mean, it's all about you are MDC, you are ZANU-PF, you are LEAD, you are this, you are that. There is no unity, there is no agreement. I mean, it's just a mess.
Politics and religion are entertainment for the poor.
Politics and religion are entertainment for the poor. Interesting.
It keeps them very busy away from critical issues.
Wow, that is deep and true, very true, because people spend their time as keyboard warriors. But before you go, Bishop, I want you to comment on an issue that has happened, that a black man was killed in America, and there's an issue that is going on about colonial relics being brought down. What do you think about that? Is it good that the statues should be brought down and the history should be wiped out, or what is your opinion? What should be done?
We don't need that history of colonialism on our face, not again. Secondly, colonialism has kept its knee on the African neck for more than 400 years. We cannot glorify colonialism and allow those desecrating monuments, David Livingstone, Cecil John Rhodes, being buried at sacred sites. If I had power in my hands, I would dig that grave myself and throw those bones into the ocean where they come from. We cannot be looking around at monuments of desecration. Why not put Tongogara at the Victoria Falls? Why not put people that you know as emblems? You would rather be glorifying colonialists. Why not even be proud of your own history? And on top of that, we need to understand, I cannot breathe. It's a painful prayer. The person who died shouting, I cannot breathe, he was not looking for bread. He was not crying for your wife or your husband. He was not crying for your car. He was not crying for your house. He was crying for air, just to breathe. The question is the African breathing economically? Is the African breathing financially? Is the African breathing politically? Is the African breathing religiously? Is the African breathing culturally? Is the African breathing in terms of entertainment? Is the African breathing in terms of fashion? Is the African breathing in terms of the environment that he's living in? Is the air clean enough? I cannot breathe are the last words spoken by a black man dying in the hands of a colonial system. And I think that prayer and that call is a call that every African must now begin to say, all we are asking for is space to breathe. How long shall we continue begging Europeans? To an extent, we must even beg for air. Just air.
Of all the things, air.
just air. I can't breathe. For me, he said, just give me air to breathe. And now the next station is that we're going to be buying air, clean air, just to breathe. And the colonial system has never loved us. You can never put ribbons around the prison. No matter how beautiful that prison looks, you are still incarcerated. We need to start learning when outside the prison door, there's a loaf of bread and there's a bunch of keys. Stop calling and stop pulling next to yourself the loaf of bread. Rather pull the key, unlock the prison door. You can have as much bread as you want outside. Eating bread behind bars is not my definition of freedom.
Thank you so much, Bishop. So before I let you go, any last words, any words of encouragement?
Words of encouragement is that Zimbabwe has a bright future. Bright future. We have lots of minerals and resources. I run a program every Sunday on Sismeli's Diaries at 10 o'clock every Sunday, where we are doing a project for rebuilding the Zimbabwean community. I will advise all your viewers to come join us there, as we are doing a project actually of redesigning, rewiring the DNA of the African nation.
Thank you so much, Bishop, for your time, and we shall be speaking very soon again. Cheers.
Thank you.
Thank you.